Okay, hello everyone. Yeah, so you didn't see the title wrong. So I'm actually building a SaaS startup. For maybe some people that don't know what a SaaS is, it's just a software as a service. Uh, so I'll just run through it. I'm actually kind of just reviewing the Medium article that I wrote, and then I decided to kind of record a video on it. So I start with this, like, have you ever to try to build something because like you needed it, like you really needed it? And I think that's how many of the great inventions actually started, because they needed those things, so they decided to create them to solve the problems that they had. So, and then did you now stop to think that, no, could people actually need this solution that I also need? And then you researched a bit, you found out that people actually needed it, but then you were a bit skeptical in your, like, you didn't really feel like you had the confidence to act, or you didn't have a confidence in your abilities to actually complete the idea. And maybe you actually even started the idea like I did, and then got stuck many times along the way. Well, let's just talk about some of the amazing experiences that I've had in trying to build this app. And I'm not even at the finish line yet, but then I guess there isn't any really any finish line, but let's just see. So the name of the app that I'm creating is Allforone. So Allforone just comes for, if you're an anime fan at all, My Hero Academia, Boku no Hero. Yeah, it was an anime that I used to watch a while back. But like the name, I just picked it because like I was thinking it would be a platform from where you could post to every one of your social media, but like you could schedule it. So what was my problem? So at the end of 2022, I started posting a bit more on LinkedIn. Firstly, it started because I started writing a bit more. God was telling me to write a bit more. So I started writing on Medium, and then I started posting. No, I actually started writing on a number of places actually, which was not the easiest. I was writing on Medium. Then it was also in my newsletter. And so I was posting to Twitter and LinkedIn. So I started with like some self-help articles, because back then I just finished reading Atomic Habits, and my brain was bubbling with some of those ideas, so I just started to write them. And then after a while, so I was doing that consistently, and yeah, it was okay for the most part. But then I began to read people on LinkedIn. Like, what LinkedIn does for you is that it begins to, I don't know if it does this for everybody, but it recommends like top creators on LinkedIn, and then it tells you to follow them, and then you learn a lot of things about how to actually scale up in LinkedIn from them. So one of the things I learned very quickly, that it is not feasible for me to keep writing every day and then posting every day. Writing every day could be good for my own practice, maybe by 15 minutes a day or something like that. But then writing every day is not really feasible if writing and posting every day is not really feasible if you want to make sure that you don't flop, you don't miss a schedule. So what I did was, after learning from them, I checked out a few apps to see which one could actually work for me, and I saw that there was a number of them. Hootsuite, one I found recently, Popular.co, but then I settled on Buffer.com. So I was using Buffer.com essentially, and it allowed me to schedule like 10 posts. Back then I was publishing like 2 posts per day, so it allowed me to schedule 2 posts. 10 posts actually. So I would schedule on Twitter and LinkedIn separately. So that didn't give me much berth. So I couldn't schedule like maybe like 100 days ahead or something like that. But what just began to happen was, and the other thing was that I couldn't really use more than one thread. I couldn't schedule more than one thread on Twitter. So I found that this was a constant theme in everywhere. So some places, well, a lot of them did have free tiers, but their free tiers were very restrictive, which was understandable because they were building the product to sell and not just to do charity. So I decided that, okay, I was going to build something to solve these problems for myself. So so as I decided to jump into the deep, like I wrote in the Medium article, and then see what was actually possible. So I started with Python and Flask, I believe. Was it Python and Flask actually? I think this might be a different project because I'm working like on 2 startups. But like I can remember that in one of them I started on Python and Flask. Then for some reason I was getting frustrated. I started building API connections to close to LinkedIn. I followed a bit of tutorials and found them helpful, and I started building them out. And then I started trying to authenticate. So how were people going to log into the platform? Then I remembered, I think I was watching, if you know AlgoExpert, it's like a platform by Clement Mialescu to practice interview coding questions. So it's not sponsored, by the way. I mean, why would it be sponsored? I'm a very small channel, but like they have a really good product, and he was saying there how they built their product, that they didn't build authentication, they didn't build payment systems by themselves, because that would require them to store passwords, store credit card numbers, and that was a dangerous thing, because like if it's already been done by the best, why are you reinventing the wheel? So he just said use third-party libraries. So it was like just use OAuth, which is just logging in with Google, logging in with GitHub and other social stuff. But I decided to switch it and used Auth0. So Auth0 is just a product by Okta. So the funny thing was, I'm still not sure if this was the former project, a previous project, or this one that I'm currently working on. I decided to delete the old repo, the old Python and Flask thing with the APIs that I built and stuff like that, because I was just getting frustrated, and I deleted it. And it was just like I deleted the local repo, I deleted the remote repo on GitHub, and then my brain just kind of freed up, and I was like, But then I was like, why didn't I save the local repo? Why didn't I save the API connections at least? So I decided to start just working on it. And so I began working with React, and I can't pinpoint why for the life of me I decided to use Next.js. So Next.js is a front-end framework, but I've never used it before, and then for some reason I decided to actually start using it now. So I decided, so very quickly, frustration just started to build once again. I left it for a while, and then when I was having my end of year retreat with God in 2022, so I just decided then that I was going to start up the project in January and actually start building. And some of the goals that I had, let me just read it. I plan to have 500 users by the end of 2023. I planned one simple thing. I plan to work on the project 30 minutes a day. So I set a checkpoint goal that I should work 30 minutes a day on the project, and that I should post to LinkedIn. But the amazing thing is that January is also final season in my university here in Lithuania, and my exams were very dicey. My GPA dropped so much this time. Anyways, so it wasn't the easiest. So I tried my best. On many days I was able to work 30 minutes, but on other days I just worked around 10 to 15 minutes on it. So then I went on to my struggles with the JavaScript world. The first one was with Next.js. One of the problems I kept having was pre-rendering errors. So like the pages were not being pre-rendered. If you know Next.js, it essentially has okay, I'll just talk about the routing later. So the pages were not being pre-rendered. Apparently, one of the reasons was I was installing some of the wrong npm packages. And then in one case I was still using React Router's link. So link is just for navigation amongst pages, but I was supposed to be using next link. But the problem was, it never said it didn't give a full stack trace. I tried to find out how I could get a full stack trace, but I just couldn't find it. So I kept not knowing what exactly was causing the problem. So I just kept deleting files, deleting stuff till I got back to like a minimal build, and then I could actually find that this was the problem, was the sad thing. So sometimes I put the way the routing is done in Next.js is that the main folder, the src folder, every file that you put there is a route. So if you have a login file there, is usually a route also. So you would have a login route. So sometimes I was posting the wrong files there because sometimes they had to have specific structures and things like that, and I didn't exactly do that, and so that was also causing problems. TypeScript was the funniest problem. I'd seen a lot of things about TypeScript, about how do this for TypeScript, use TypeScript to be good. Funnily enough, I saw a post on Twitter a while back that was saying you just change the extensions of your file from .js to .ts, and you are saying you're using TypeScript. And I was laughing so hard. Same thing happened to me actually. I changed my extensions to .ts and .tsx for the React files and stuff like that. And then I just ignored all the type declarations and stuff like that. But then TypeScript started shouting. It was just warning me, so I was just ignoring the warnings, like, I don't care. But then at a point, errors started coming in. So one of the errors that happened was some packages from npm packages did not ship their own types. So I had to declare the types for them. Some React element, of course, had to have types, but I didn't put the types in many of them. Some of them were complaining about the return types of their functions and things like that. The arguments were complaining, everything was complaining. So I just said, well, this seems to be the end of my journey with TypeScript. I removed my node modules. I removed the TypeScript configuration file tsconfig. Renamed all my files to JS and JSX, and then I removed all TypeScript packages and replaced them with other stuff. I also removed all the type declarations. Well, with tsconfig, one problem I was having with it was that it kept being regenerated. Apparently there were some TS or TSX files kept still in some. I'd even forgotten that I created some of those folders. They were in my app because I was using like multi-branch system, because like I wanted to build it more professionally, and then I didn't want different features to collide with each other except ones that actually needed each other. For those cases, I just merged them into main and then pulled them down into the feature branch that I was currently working on. So tsconfig was just giving me that problem. But then when I just found out that there was just a .ts file left that had not been deleted, I just changed it back to JS. Then the next ordeal I had to cross was Auth0. I had used Auth0 in the previous project that I was talking about, but when I got here, all hell broke loose. I mean, I had known that there were a few things that I could maybe sidestep, like errors that I should sidestep, but I mean, Auth0 showed me that it was stronger than my logic here. So the first problem was, apparently I had to rename all the React environment variables to next public so that I could expose them to the browser. I didn't know that until very late, until I actually started using Firebase for authentication. And then I had to use Webpack to load the environment in the previous project, in the previous just React project. Now I was using Next.js, so I had to use next.config.js, which I didn't know at first for some reason. And then Auth0 was actually never going to, I already knew that Auth0 doesn't work on machines without HTTPS, and this was because of their SPA.js library, I think. So I already deployed to Vercel, and I thought that this would just solve everything. But then Auth0 just still found a way to just stress and disturb my life so much. So I just decided, let's move out to Firebase, because it seems more friendly. Maybe it is more friendly. I was like, yes, Firebase is here, let's just work. But then that didn't work out as I wanted either. So I found it. The first problem I came against was what I called a many choice paralysis problem. So I just had many tutorials and many stuff that I was trying to follow at once, and then I just kept eating the wall because I was using different things from different places at once, and then it just wasn't working out. So then I decided to then the next problem that I had was the auth, like there was an auth object like there. Well, auth object auth function. So I was finding it out to export it. So like I instantiated the Firebase app in like its own module. So then I wanted to export this out so that I could use it in various places in the app. But for some reason it wasn't working, and it had previously worked when I just add everything inside one file where it was being used. But I couldn't do that if I wanted to use it across various files, which I actually wanted to. So then I found out that there was actually a newer version, Firebase 9.0 compact. So I had to migrate everything over to Firebase 9.0. I found a Medium article that actually helped me to do that a bit more. Even their documentation helped there. So I thought everything was fixed. So I tried to do Google OAuth authentication and email/password, but email/password was just not working. The errors it was bringing was invalid API key. I actually don't remember what was causing that, because I checked the next config, everything was coming in well. Next.js automatically loads those env files. I was trying everything to kind of load it, but I just couldn't. I actually still fixed the problem, but I can't remember how I fixed it or what the problem essentially was. So I decided, before I knew how to fix the problem, I decided to scrap email, login, password, whatever. I just scrapped everything away, and then I decided to use what was it called again? Google OAuth alone. So I started working on Google OAuth, and then I found out very soon that the same invalid API key problem was actually also there on the Google OAuth authentication. So I decided to solve it, which I still can't remember how I solved it actually. Maybe I think it was actually, maybe I didn't have some Firebase packages installed or something like that. I think that was it actually. I can't remember very well. So it worked on my machine, and I think I actually recorded a previous video on this, and then it actually worked on my machine. Then so it was working. Now I pushed it to Vercel, and now it was no longer working. Well, but it worked on my machine anyways. So so I just decided to forget about auth and then started building some front end, and then that's when I discovered MaterialUI. So I was just watching a YouTube video while I was programming once, working on the project. I decided to watch a YouTube video, and then it was on this guy's channel, Front Start, and then he showed me MaterialUI, and I mean, it was amazing because like I didn't really have to do much CSS. At this point, I was not interested in building a beautiful front end. I just wanted to build a functional front end, something that I could support the back end. So I mean, it had automatic styling already. Like they had components that had everything that I needed. I mean, if I wanted to do a bit of extra styling, which I really didn't want to do, but even if I wanted to, they had the SX prop, which was like a prop that took in styles. So I tried streaming it actually at first. I think it is in one of my videos, in my first video, I was saying there about the problems that I had while streaming. So I decided to record anyways. So I started building. I built like a navigation bar, and then I started trying to build out the minimal build. I went online and just searched out some landing page templates for MaterialUI. I found some of them. I think it was on shovel.dev or so. So I decided to use this, and then I found that I actually had to build a theme. That was where everything started falling away again. So I started building the theme, but then there were so many things I had to remember. So many things had been changed even from when the theme that I was using, the landing page template that I was using, had been shipped. So I had the website where I found the theme did not ship the theme, so I had to try and rebuild the theme myself. Some of the styling that I needed for the theme was on a different thing. So now they were using MUI/system to ship the styles and stuff like that for the creation of the themes and everything like that. And it took me a while to actually navigate to there and then find that they had actually announced that in their changelog. But right now, I just still abandoned it. And then all of a sudden, out of the blues, when I was coding actually one day, a lady reaches out to me on LinkedIn and says, so I was coding and then I decided to take a break on LinkedIn and just check out my LinkedIn. So he reaches out to me and says she would like to kind of like invest. Would I be interested in investment and stuff like it? So I mean, she was talking about, so I said, well, I'm working on a number of startup projects now. And then she said she's interested. I said I'm working on a SAAS startup. She said she's interested in a SAAS. And then she directed me to it was kind of like a VC fund, you know, if you know Y Combinator fund. So they were going to be like teaching me stuff about business, technical products, and the various things like that. And so she sent me the link. I was skeptical at first, but then I prayed about it and then I decided to sign up. So then I decided to sign up, and then I signed up, and I mean, I filled in a bunch of the application after having prayed, and then God said I should just go ahead with it. I filled in a bunch of the application, and then I was still kind of skeptical, but then I mean, she was actually very helpful because I got to a point where I didn't have like my Lithuanian phone number has been blocked because like I haven't used it for a while because there was really no need, and then also I couldn't access my Nigerian numbers, so there was virtually no way to get like the one-time password that would be sent to my number. So I just talked to her and then she gave me a one-time password to just use. I logged in, filled in the application. There were some questions that were difficult to answer. Some of the questions were like, let me just see if I can scroll down and see some of the questions. One thing was, how have you hacked a non-computer system or a non-technical system to your advantage? So I just talked a bit about networking and how I used it to get some jobs. Then they talked about what interesting things have you created before. I think I just talked about maybe the podcast that I was doing on scientific word generation and stuff like that. And then they were asking me what was my value projections in terms of money, in terms of the build of the product over the next 5 years. I can't even remember what I wrote. I just wrote some things there. Well, she found me and then I applied. But then, so like the VC fund is actually in China, and then I mean it was interesting. At first I was really very skeptical, but then I just decided to apply. Then but after that I actually had a pivot in the idea. So I was on one of those 30 minutes coding session again. I was researching how to so whenever I get stuck on a certain part, I just move to another part. So I was trying to build a cron job that would check the database, check which posts were to be sent to LinkedIn at that point, and then actually pick them up and then post them to LinkedIn. So then I found a guy's blog, and then he was talking about how he was writing all his content in Notion, and he had a cron job that used the Notion API, picked the content from there, that any content that was scheduled to be posted next, and then he posted it. It created a markdown file on his GitHub repo, and then he had GitHub Actions enabled, and that just published this to his Netlify website. That was pretty cool, but it wasn't exactly what I was looking for, but he gave me some ideas concerning the cron job. So then I just began to think, is it actually possible to use Notion as the base for like my database and stuff like that, so that I don't have to do much stuff with creation of database accessing, so I can just use the Notion API. And then I just started to research a bit about it, and I found that somebody had actually created something like that. But then I didn't have a problem with that somebody had created it, because even the original idea was something that people already created. My idea was to create a simpler version. My idea was to create something that was open source, so that anybody that couldn't pay but could fix things together by themselves could still use it. And then I was planning to make it it would have a free tier that was non-restrictive, so you could use as many things as you wanted. Maybe just a few things, like a very few things would be restricted to maybe paying customers. So and they needed to be paying customers because of some of the APIs that I would have to host and things like that. My plans was also to kind of just cold email a lot of founders, people that I saw posted on LinkedIn very frequently, if they needed such solutions. Especially if they were like lower income kind of creators and things like that. It was targeting lower income creators, so I was targeting maybe like shipping the product for like $5 a month or something like that. So that was essentially, so my the only thing that I'm kind of still thinking now is, do I want to build a Notion integration? Because there's an option to build a Notion integration. Would that be simpler to build than building a custom app that uses both the LinkedIn and the Notion API, connects them together, and then there's a cron job in between them that just checks and posts like that? I'm still figuring that out, but I've not been able to work on that because of it. It was final season in January. I just finished my exam last week, so but that wasn't even actually the problem, because I was finding time to actually code then. It was majorly, I had an interview for a data analysis role. So from Friday till now, I've been choked up. I had a lot of meetings. Apart from the interview, so I had a meeting, I had church, I had a few things that I had to do in addition to solving the tasks that they gave me for the interview progress. So I just finished the second stage of the task I submitted. So hopefully today I'll be able to research the idea more and actually work on it and see where I get to next. So it's been an amazing journey, a frustrating one, but definitely an amazing journey. So I intend to build out that idea and actually start giving it to people, let it be tested out, see how people are enjoying it, see how it's working well for them, and build a product on it, build some sustainable income on it. Yeah. So I'm still waiting for the what's it called, for the VC fund to read back to me. Hopefully I'll be in Beijing by summer learning from them, even if my idea is not the best of the best. And they did say that your idea might not be complete yet, it might not be the best, but should still apply. They talked about, I also actually gave them some updates about the previous project that I was working on, which hasn't gone anywhere actually. So there are just a few morals here. Just start building. Don't be afraid to try. One thing is, you might always feel planning, analysis is paralysis. When you start planning a lot of stuff and then like, will it work, will it not work, will it work, and it slows you down. I'm not saying don't plan ahead, but plan as much as you should. be ready to update your beliefs. Be ready to update your this is just like from Bayesian Inference. Be ready to update your beliefs as you go. Make as many mistakes and learn from them. Document those mistakes so that you never repeat them. Don't be afraid to try. Build in the public eye if you can, because I believe I must have posted about Allforone somewhere, and then maybe she just found it and then decided to talk with me. And above else, simplicity triumphs. Don't try to make your project the hardest thing. Don't try to use a new framework that is flashy. Don't try to use something. Just be simple. Use the simplest solution possible. So now I'm even appreciating no code solutions even more. So just use the simplest code solution possible. So this was my experience. I started building a startup that seems like it's going to fail, and now I'm an applicant to a VC fund which actually approached me themselves. So hopefully let's see it goes. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching.